everybody? It's that time once again for another fantastic episode of the NBP Show. And as always, I'm your host, Commissioner Daltmick, bringing you the latest action in NBP Pro. So, like we've done in the previous episodes, get the guitar off, and then we hop into the action. So, flip the amp down. Boom. We don't want any squeals during that. And alrighty, now we can get it started. So, quick shout out to the Delft Mental Competition. Best Elf Coach will be decided. 2 rounds of group staging, and then an 8-team knockout cup to decide the Delft Mental champion. Still time to get your Delft Mental teams in and get them built up for this fantastic, amazing competition correlated by Fantastic Dr. J. Let us know in the Discord if you have interest in that. Now, we're going to kick off the recap of Week 3 action in NBP Pro. And we're going to start it off at the top of the list here. Once we get the camera straight and level in Ancient Empires, top of the ticket, we got Yu-Gi-Oh! Matt Zucador taking on Fantastic Dr. J and NBP Park Life. This was a bash fest. The orcs came out and they were wanting Skaven blood. The Skaven had a one-turner that tried his hardest to get the touchdown, but he just couldn't do it in the face of the orc assault. So, it resulted in them not scoring in this game, whereas the orcs were able to throw their weight around and get the ball into the end zone for a 1-0 touchdown. That's going to cement both of their places here going into Week 4 for those intra-divisional, intra-conference play games. Now, to the second game on the ticket, we have Jonah 2005 UK and the Haunting of Men, the Undead team, taking on Legend T969 and the Nagarath Bolts, the Dark Elf team here in Ancient Empires. This game started out close, but then the dice just fell one way. The Nagarath Bolts tried to get something going here, but Nuffle just said no, and they were not able to establish a foothold on the pitch. And the Haunting of Men were able to score 3 touchdowns in this one. So the final score in that one was 3-0. Every time the Nagarath Bolts got the ball back, they just managed to get it stolen once again. The injuries were out of hand for the Undead team. They were able to just crush through that Dark Elf armor and establish that 3-0 victory. And also clinch first place of Ancient Empires. Because that matchup there was kind of the decider. It would have probably still been Jonah 2005 in the top, regardless of a win or loss. But he did establish himself there with a 3-0 start here. Followed by Legend T in second, Fantastic Dr. J in third, and Matt Zucador in fourth. Now, the second division of the old world, Beheaded Kings. Top of the ticket, we got a Bag of Chodes. That's Blade Nut 666 up against Boxing Clever Wheelie 365, a former champion here at NBP Pro. I believe the only Old World / European champion here. Fact check me if I'm wrong there. But this was a matchup between dwarfs and humans, respectively. A Bag of Chodes there tried their hardest to get real physical, which they did, but they weren't physical enough to get the ball and get a touchdown, as Boxing Clever were able to hold them back as well as also score here for the 1-0 victory for Wheelie there. Then we go on to Small and Mighty, the Ogres, coached by Kodak Cookie, up against Orion Magics, coached by Pong Hines here. Pong Hines, a NBP veteran, and Kodak Cookie as well. And the Ogres just could not manage to smash and bash down on the AV7 Wood Elves. So the Wood Elves managed to run all over the pitch here with the ball, scoop and score at will as they grab a 4-0 victory. One of the largest, if not the largest, victories of the season by any team in the competition. And that's enough to get them first place. They do have 4 league points, whereas Boxing Clever and Wheelie also has 4 league points, but the touchdown differentials are there. They have scored 5 total touchdowns this season. So that put them in first of Beheaded Kings, followed by Wheelie, as mentioned, in Boxing Clever. Then we got Blake Nut 666 and a bag of chodes there with a 1-1-1 record. And then we go on to Kodak Cookie, who's yet to get the win, but we're all rooting for him to do so. He's got the draw, so let's see if he can get that dub with his 1-2 record there. 0-1-2 record. So we'll go on down to the last division of Old World, which is Cold Hearts. And that's going to see Halloween Plebs and JG 1357 taking on the Pollinaire Keg Killers and Bubba Tattoo. Halloween Plebs, Necro, Pollinaire Keg Killers, Dwarf. So, you expect some physicality in this game, but you also expect a little bit of agility out of those werewolves, as they're very, very maneuverable. Can kind of get all over the pitch there and get where they want to, use that frenzy to get some extra hits in. But they weren't able to fully crack through the armor of the Keg Killers, as the Dwarfs did manage to put up 2 touchdowns. So Pollinaire Keg Killers continuing their dominance of Cold Hearts division. But, JG and the Halloween Plebs are right behind them. This game was the decider for first place in Cold Hearts. So we got the 2-0 victory there for the Dwarfs, bashing their way into the end zone, holding off the assault of the Necro team. Now, the final game of Cold Hearts, we see Wapley Wanderers, coached by S130 South, up against the Blood Moon Wanderers. So the Wandering wrestle here. I don't know. I tried to make an alliteration there and didn't have one offhand. So, yes, the 2 Wanderers going head-to-head as Omega Deviant goes against S130 South. And this was another Necro team with Blood Moon Wanderers up against a Dark Elf team. And they managed to have quite a physical game, as come to expect, Dark Elves being the bashiest of the elf crews. Whereas, of course, Necro likes to bash, but they also like to do a little dash. I'll get my camera level 1 of these days. So, the Blood Moon Wanderers were able to answer against a Dark Elf score. But then once the Dark Elves got the ball back, they were able to control the rest of the game and run it on downfield and score late in the game for the 2-1 victory. Which gets us our standings for Cold Hearts division. Top of the division, Bubba Tattoo, Pollinaire Keg Killers, 2-1-0, 5 league points. JG 1357 and the Halloween Plebs, 2-0-1 with 4 league points. S130 South, Wapley Wanderers, 1-0-2 with 2 league points. And Omega Deviant and the Blood Moon Wanderers, 0-1-2 with 1 league point. So, that gives us our matchups for week 4. We'll cover those later in the show once we get New World squared away, and we'll go into the matchups for week 4 for interconference, interdivisional. So, the standings for the conference itself in Old World still sees Jonah at the top with his Haunting of Men. And then we have Bubba Tattoo moving up to 2nd in the Pollinaire Keg Killers. And then Pong Hines moving up from 6th up to 3rd, Orion Magics. And then we have Wheelie as well moving up from 7th up to 4th place. And then JG from 2nd place falling to 5th. That's the top 5. If you want to see the rest of the rundown of those standings, they're in the Discord. It's in the Old World Division Conference. The chart is there, as well as the divisional standings for everything if you want to get a better rundown there. Now we can move it on to the U.S. division, the New World. The revolutionaries here, succeeding from the British Union several years ago, centuries ago at this point. But the New World is taking on the Dark Elves. Sorry, the Deep Dark competition. Sorry, they're named after a former Dark Elf team there. That's a Bortbot's naming convention there from seasons ago. The Golf Bondage Party. Shout out to them. Haven't seen them or Bort in a while. But that's actually where the naming convention of Deep Dark comes from. And Deep Dark will go to the top game of the ticket, which is Get Confident Stupid and Kamikoze, former commissioner, returning champion, and those lizards are taking on DKM 96 and Malevolent Malware, a Chaos team. This was the game for first place. The winning team would guarantee themselves first in Deep Dark Division, and this was a very close game. The game started with the Lizards getting the ball, and they managed to hold off a Chaos Assault and make their way down and be real slippery with those slimy skinks and get in for a 1-0 touchdown. And then the second half by the Chaos team would be a grind fest. They were looking to score kind of early, but the Lizard opposition stopped them, so it kind of stalled out their offense, and it ended up taking all of the game. I think it was the very last 2 turns. They were finally down in scoring range, and the Malevolent Malware had a chance to score. They just didn't want to take a final GFI. I don't think they had a reroll and didn't want to take the chances of failing it. And the stall out didn't really work because the Lizards were able to get a break tackle Saurus down for a blitz and get a 2-die on a Beastman holding the ball, knocked it loose, and then actually tripped down the field a little bit with it, and a skink ended up getting it. Or he tried to pick it up and he bobbled it and it fell on the sideline. And so he's sitting there on the ball and the sideline with the ball still in play. The Malevolent Malware go after the skink. They hit the skink, but the skink had sidestep. So the sidestep skink bounces himself onto the ball after getting hit and bounces the ball, which then bounces to the guy who blitzed, and he caught it. So there was no way to move the ball down forward, even though we had 2 to 3 guys in scoring range there for the tie. So the game finishes 1-0 in the favor of Kamikoze and the Lizards. Get Confident Stupid does establish first place there, 6 total league points, and Malevolent Malware grabs second place there with 4 total league points. Then we jump on down the ticket to Coach Shushnik and In the Shadows up against Cook 9000 and NWO Vampires versus Chaos. Lots of great mutations on that Chaos team. Lots of amazing skills on both the Vampires and the Thrall and in the Shadows. And the mutations would not be enough to hold the game. And the almost perfect, I should say, defense of NWO managing to only have 1 touchdown scored against them in each of their losses so far, actually takes a 2-0 loss this time, as the Vampires were able to take an early command lead of this game and continue to establish that momentum moving forward through the entire game and grabbing a 2-0 victory. So we're all still rooting for Cook out there and the NWO to grab their first amount of league points there, starting out 0-3 here. Hopefully we'll see some shake-ups in week 4 and 5 out of them moving forward. Speaking of moving forward, that brings us on to Saltworks, where Praise the Joe, Knockout Joe, taking on Morks Orcs, coached by Fury of Anon. 2 GFCL legends here. One, Joe being an MVP legend at this point. Going head-to-head. These are 2 Blood Bowl heavyweights with 2 well-built teams taking on each other for first place of their division. And this would be a very, very close game all the way through. Seemed like the dice were very fair for this one. There wasn't any large swings either way. Both teams had, multiple chances to score, but the Orcs were the ones who were able to capitalize on those chances and grab a 1-0 victory. That's actually their lowest margin of victory all season, the Orcs. So that tells you they had to claw and fight their way for it, but they're still staying 3-0, man. They have had an amazing start here, and Fury Venon's having a great first season here in NBP, and we're glad to see it. Always glad to see coaches come into the league and perform well. Not to say that Joe didn't perform well, because he's also been performing well, but we know that that's what Joe does. He performs well, even with stunty teams. But it was not enough to grab the win, and Orcs takes first place of Saltworks Division, and praise the Joe. And Knockout Joe takes second place of the division after that matchup. Now we move on down to the Meat Man and Joe Cole Jr. 13-13 taking on Godzilos and the Blitz Among Us. That is Meat Man, a Chaos team, and Blitz Among Us, a Vampire team. And the Vampires in MVP in general are looking to seem to have found their steam here, as both scored 2 touchdowns this week. So this week we had 4 total Vampire team touchdowns. That's really good. And they also went up against Chaos. Both Vampire teams played a Chaos team, and both of them won. Joe is still finding his footing here in MVP. It's his first season here, and he managed to grab his first touchdown. He did. And it looked like this was going to at least be a draw, if not a Chaos win. But the Blitz Among Us did manage to score 2 touchdowns, as mentioned earlier. I seem to have heard that they used that hypnotic gaze skill quite a bit, and that helped them out in several situations, resulting in, a very good turnout. When that hypnotic gaze is working, it's fantastic, and it did here. So once again, good for Joe Cole getting his first touchdown there, and we're still looking for that first win or draw for you there. We want to see you get some league points after the 0-3 start. So we're all rooting for you, but good on Godzilos grabbing his first win there as well. Both of these teams were winless, so seeing Godzilos grab his win is good to see there in the 2-1 win, and that also kind of decided the standings for Saltworks, because Godzilos grabbed third place with his win, putting him at 3 total league points. And then Joe Cole is at the bottom of Saltworks with no league points. But we'll see how the week 4 and 5 matchups go, because we just might see some shakeups here. Lots of potential for upsets when the first place of the division's taking on the 4th places. And then after that, we got 1s versus 1s. So 2 total weeks for potential to shake up the division and upset some teams. Now, the final division of Old World is going to be Tar and Feather. As always, I save my game for last because I tend to go a little long on the descriptions. So I make sure it's the very last one, so all the other coaches, get a fair shot at screen time. And that was going to be Rebel Knight and the Turf Pirates taking on Wansi and Thundercats Ho FC. And this game would be one of those that could potentially decide first place of Tar and Feather, because a win here would have put them both in touchdown range and league points range ahead of everybody. Even if there was another team that won, either of these teams winning would have more than likely grabbed first place in the division. So both teams were out for blood in this one and wanting a matchup that grabs a win for themselves. And both teams managed to grab half a win, as they both score a touchdown and draw 1-1. Turf Pirates were able to get through the crunchy offense the crunchy defense of the Wood Elves. The Tree Man gave them fits, as I feel like that gigantic Tree Man on Thundercats tends to do for every team they play against. And then, the Wood Elves were able to use their agility and get around through those Chaos Dwarves and, maneuver a tying touchdown. So 1-1 all, that's not bad for league points wise, but when you're trying to grab that win in that first place spot, it can be frustrating. But again, it's good. It's much better than a loss. Remember, a 1-1 draw is way better than a 1-0 loss, and that benefits both of them and keeps them steadily tied up for second place here in Tar and Feather. Now, we move on to the very last match of the league and the very last match of Old World and the last match of Tar and Feather, which was Baphomet's Bestowed, coached by yours truly, a Chaos team, up against The Cure, a Nurgle team coached by Play Bear, an MVP veteran here, two former Tar and Feather rivals coming back and renewing that rivalry here in Tar and Feather. And this game was brutal. Both of these teams were hitting each other almost the entire game. And it just so happened that dice fell in my favor opposed to his favor. I will chalk that one up to the dice because it was very, very even. And I was getting outplayed it a few times. The Cure have some very scary Nurgle players there, but sometimes their speed is their detriment because they're not super fast, and that's kind of was the disadvantage there. Once the Chaos guys were able to break free with the ball, they could kind of make some space and couldn't get quite caught up. But even though they did have the ball, the Cure, fought the entire time. There were 2 earned touchdowns because tooth and nail they fought trying to stop, and they were not easy. It finally came down to scoring late in the first half, and then in the second half getting the ball, and then scoring late in the second half by Baphomet's Bestowed. So that chalks up Tar and Feather. Tar and Feather, top place is me, and Baphomet's Bestowed, the only one winning in week 3. So that after everybody was tied 1-1-1, I think at that point, was 1-0-1 at that point, the win was a deciding factor. And 4 league points is me on top, pretty much tied for second place. They have the same touchdown differential, just the Thundercats has scored 1 more touchdown than the Turf Pirates, and they kind of tied up for third, but both the game and the scoring convention here shakes the Thundercats up top just because they've scored 4 touchdowns opposed to 3. And the Turf Pirates in third, and then Play Bear in fourth. So that's going to kind of decide our matchups for week 4. Now, Old World Conference play top 5 is going to see Fury Vanan remain at top place. Kamikoze and Get Confident Stupid is also going to remain at top place. And then third place, me, is moving up from 8, and Baphomet's Bestowed up to third. And then falling down from third is DKM96 and Malevolent Malware falling down to fourth. And then Knockout Joe also falling down from fourth to fifth, and Praise the Joe. And it's actually kind of a tie for fifth from Juan Juan and Praise the Joe both are kind of tied up there for fifth place. They have the same touchdown differential, same amount of league points. So it's a 2-way tie there for fifth. They've kind of got it tussled up. Now, let me get league standings up on the screen here because I do use my computer monitor. We'll give you the top 5 of the league standings. Again, like with the last conference shakedown there, it's in the Discord chat in the New World channel. You can see the full rundown of all 12 teams and positions there. Now, league standings is in the general chat. You can see the whole 24 positions there, but we're going to give you the top 5. Moving up from rank 2 last week up to rank 1 this week is Jonah 2005 UK and the Haunting of Men out of Ancient Empires. He's 3-0 to start. He scored 7 touchdowns. That's the most touchdowns scored by any team in the league so far. He's had 1 scored against him with 6 total league points. So second place, falling out of first place, is Fury Vanan and Morks Orcs out of Saltworks. They're 3-0 as well, and they have scored 6 touchdowns. And they haven't had any scored against them. So to be honest, it's kind of a tie for first in the fact that the touchdown differential is the same, +6, but Jonah has scored 7. So he's kind of at the top, but to be honest, it's a tie. And anyways, one's Old World and one's New World, so it doesn't really matter per se, especially being week 3. But in the long run, they're both like first place, really. Then to third, Kamikoze and Get Confident Stupid, moving up from 4th last week out of Deep Dark. He's 3-0 with 4 total touchdowns, none against. And then 4th place, moving up from 6th, is Bubba Tattoo with the Apollinaire Keg Killers out of Cold Hearts Division. They're 2-1-0. 5 total touchdowns, 1 against. And then 5th place is moving up from 14th place is Pong Hines, Orion Magics, and Beheaded Kings. They're 1-2-0, 5-4, and 1 against on touchdowns. And then I'm in 6th, moving up from 13, but whatever. And then DKM behind me, moving down from 5th to 7th. So that's kind of, and then we'll say Wheelie as well, moving up from 15th to 8th. So those 3 teams there have potential to kind of get into the top 5 next week. But before we run out of time on the camera, I want to cover our matchups for next week. I want to make sure we have all of our Old World versus New World matchups, accounted for here. So as the sheet on Google Sheets loads, I want to give a shout out to the transfer market. All the coaches in pro, once they finish their week 4 game in the coming week, are eligible for a transfer. So don't forget that. You call a player up from the dev. You can send a player down to, account for the value, or you can outright buy one with gold. And we even have pro-to-pro transfer. We've never had one happen. It probably isn't super beneficial, but if somebody wants to do one for the lulz, we're up for that as well. But we'll get it up to the Old World versus New World 1v4 versus 4v1. And that first matchup is going to be Ancient Empires and Tar and Feather. We got Jonah 2005 UK taking on Play Bear Haunting of Men versus The Cure. The 2 versus 3 matchup is Legend T 969 Nagarath Bolts up against Rebel Knight and the Turf Pirates. And then 3 versus 2 is Fantastic Dr. J and NBP Park Life up against Juan C 1103 and the Thundercats FC. And then 4th versus 1, Matt Zucador and Yu-Gi-Oh! Taking on me and Bob Famance Bestowed. Then we have Beheaded Kings versus Deep Dark. Pong Hines and the Orion Magics up against Cook 9000 and the NWO. 2nd versus 3rd, we got Wheelie 365 and Boxing Clever up against Shushnik and In the Shadows. And then behind that, we have 3 versus 2, Blade Nuts 666 of Bag of Chodes up against 2nd place DKM 96 and Malevolent Malware. And then 4th place, Kodak Cookie Small and Mighty up against number 1 Kamikoze Get Confident Stupid. Some of these games have already been played, so check Cabal Vision Replay or Twitch in the Discord. You can see the replays for these, but we'll recap them next week as always. And this episode is almost 30 minutes long, so we're going to try to speed it up here. So, first place, Cold Hearts versus Saltworks. First place, Bubba Tattoo, Apollinaire Keg Killers. Up against 4th place, Joe Cole Jr., Meat Man. And then we got 2nd place, JG 1357, Halloween Plebs. 3rd place, Godzilla's Blitz Among Us. That's their matchup there. 3rd place out of Cold Hearts is S130 South, Wapley Wanderers, up against 2nd place out of Saltworks, Knockout Joe and Praise the Joe. Number 4, Omega Deviant and Blood Moon Wanderers out of Cold Hearts taking on number 1, Fear Vietnam and Morks Orcs. So that's all of the matchups there. Some really good potentials for these 4 seeds to upset the top seeds there and see some changes in divisions. Again, some of those have already been played, so check out the Discord, Twitch, whatever. If you want some info on those, they're also on Cabal Vision as always. But before this episode gets insanely long, it's already over 30 minutes. We'll try to keep it close to that. We'll end it up, and I'll just say I am keeping total records for these matchups. We'll Next week, we'll give you a rundown of Week 4 records to see if Old World or New World Conference is better than the other. And then same with Week 5, and we'll have an aggregate total there at the end of those weeks to kind of see if Old World or New World won these interdivisional interconference plays. But that's all I've got for you today. I hope you have all enjoyed everything, musical intro, the recaps. If I got anything wrong, call me out on it in the comments. Tell me what you like in the comments. If you like it, thumbs up. If you hate it, thumbs down. And again, that's all I got for you, everybody. Have a good one.